All right, everyone, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. Going to be getting into the top round 2 showdown plays for the Travelers Championship. Let's first get a recap of round 1. So looking at it right now, the course is playing, I don't want to say easier than expected, but a little bit easier than expected. Lots of birdies out there right now. That being said, there are a lot of players that are getting eaten up as well. It's an easier version of the US Open going on right now, pretty much. Players that are on and going low. Players that are not on are still struggling to score. Looking at it right now, we got Denny McCarthy and Adam Scott fighting it out for the potential first round lead. Then Keegan as well. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the 9-to-5 player pool, it is looking like it's going to be a good week thus far. Looking at, I didn't get really creative with the core plays. I literally said stick to the top plays, okay? And I mean, it's just looking like it's going to be a good week right now. I think Thomas Dietrich is the only projected missed cut right now. Siwoo as well. But other than that, Kevin Wu, some value plays are doing well. Looking like it's going to be a good week. Lots of 6-for-6 lineups. Look at some of the sample builds. Those are all doing pretty well as well. So in terms of 6-for-6, in terms of profitability, come round 4. But I do just want to touch on something because this was a tweet that I put out just looking at kind of the ownership and how it's going for those players. Sky Scheffler, chalk, makes sense. Patrick Hanley, chalk as well. The 1 and 2 players in the 9-to-5 model, that makes sense. Russell Henley, a top 11 play as well, makes sense that, was high owned. A lot of people were on him. But at the same time, if we go to ownership leverage page, and I even tweeted this out as well, there are a lot of different plays that we could be on, good pivots away from Russell Henley, who ended up coming in probably a little bit overowned. And kind of the way to see that specifically would be kind of looking at the most overall players. He was coming in the red a little bit, and that was coming in at a projected ownership of about 22%. He ended up being higher than that. But there are a lot of strong pivots that we could be on, specifically like Shane Lowry, Adam Scott. You look at Jaeger as well. And then Andrew Putnam was another one I tossed out. I know the price is a little bit different there. But that was the tweet that I put out, and I was still pretty shocked to see Russell Henley coming in as chalk. I feel like people have already established that this is a solid tool to use, the ownership leverage tool. It's just putting yourself ahead of people for the most part. I mean, look at it. Yeah. Adam Scott, Shane Lowry doing well. Cage Lee, 1 under par, tied with him. Andrew Putnam doing pretty well. Dietrich, the only one that's not. And then Jaeger, last I looked at was -3. So it's weird that people chose to put themselves behind the 8 ball like that. And that's not to say he's not going to go out and play well. Russell Henley tomorrow, he's someone that I was pretty high on as well. So, I mean, I get it. Just kind of strange that people saw that he was valued, and maybe they didn't see it. Maybe that's the issue. But they saw that he was projected to finish top 5 based off of his ownership. People were valuing him as a top 5 finisher, which, once again, it's not like he shouldn't have been high owned, but it's just strange that there were so many strong pivots around him that his ownership still skyrocketed that high. But getting back into it, some of the chalk is, it's looking pretty good. Henley's going to be a sweat. You got Siwoo Kim. A little bit strange that he was chalk as well. +2. Tom Kim a little bit. I would say these players right here, and even Collin Morikawa as well, very strange that these players were chalk, just given that Siwoo Kim not checking all the boxes this week. Tom Kim, GPP only type play. Sili Tagala, he had been someone that lacked upside. I kind of get why he was a little bit higher on. Collin Morikawa really has been struggling a lot recently. I really can't explain that ownership. And I actually had a look. Man, +4 for Collin Morikawa. That is quite crazy. Wow. I'm actually curious, where was he ranked for kind of leverage? Properly owned. But 20%, that is crazy. Look at the players that you could have been on besides Collin Morikawa. Tony Finau, Victor Hovland, Tommy Fleetwood, Wyndham Clark, Ricky Fitzpatrick. There's a bunch of other pivots we could be on. So kind of just strange that he ended up being chalk. But that's enough kind of talking about round 1. Let's go ahead and get into round 2. Okay, so just looking at the live stats, really just trying to figure out which players are going to play better than expected. Okay, I phrased that wrong. Which players that played better than expected in round 1 are going to come back, and which players that didn't play as well are going to have a good day. So let's start out with just kind of looking at that. Really what I want to see though is going to be strokes gained putting. Let's just look at that. And just as an FYI, I'm recording this while round 1 is finishing up, so the data is not complete. Okay, and that's where I also struggle to give out showdown content. One, I feel like the tool speaks for itself. I'll get into that in just a second. But 2, it's like 10 p.m. So it's just like, but let's look at it. Some players that are expected to go out and putt better. We got Max Homa, Taylor Moore, Matt Kuchar, Thomas Dietrich, Lauer, Rowensky, Billy Horschel, Harris English, Justin Supp, Patrick Cantlay. Very interesting there. I would imagine Xander would be up here because he missed a lot of short ones, but he's not. Interesting there. Let's flip it around. Which players are some players that maybe putted way better than expected in round 1? Cameron Young. Cameron Young is under par right now. Shocking, because he putted poorly. Shane Lowry, yeah. Shane Lowry putted lights out. Tough to see him having another good day putting. Jaeger is popping up in there. Scotty Scheffler. Mark Hubbard, that's a little bit interesting there. So, maybe if some of these names are popping up, they might not be players that we want to be on. All right, so let's get into it. I have it already selected by round one. So what we want to go ahead and do is we can look at a bunch of different stats that we want to. Let's look at regression. Which players are the most likely to play better than they did in round one? We got Colin Morikawa, Matt Kuchar, Max Homa, Ricky Fowler, Thomas Dietrich, a bunch of names that shouldn't be shocking. Siwoo Kim, Will Gordon, Joseph Bremlett, unfortunately. Guys, this is frustrating. I just want to touch on this real quick. I was deciding between Joseph Bremlett and Kevin Yu to kind of close out my betting card actually for the week. I won Bremlett mostly because the outright tag spotted him as someone that could be a good long shot bet. But we know Kevin Yu is a top 10 staff fit this week. The only issue with him was that he was coming in off of an injury, off of surgery. This is the first event he's played since February. If it weren't for that, I don't think we would have gotten the crazy price point on him or the crazy odds that we got on him. But he shot a -5 and it's not shocking at all because he was a good play. So I'm really kind of kicking myself for that, but that's my long way of saying Bramlett, someone that could play better. Okay, Nate Lashley at 87, he's someone that could play better as well. So this is not a bad way to look at plays. We got Rory popping up in there. Rory, very hit or miss day. Hideki couldn't make a putt. Xander expected to play better. Let's flip it around here. Scroll all the way to the bottom. All right, so a bunch of players that, Kelly Craft, Zach Blair, Zach Johnson, Chad Rand. These are a bunch of players that no one really expected to play well, and so it does make sense why we probably shouldn't be targeting those players. Now let's just go ahead and get into the top showdown picks. So we got Rory coming in there, and so we could sort it by tee time, but apparently the AM little bump that people get is not a thing this week because, man, Adam Scott and Denny McCarthy, whoo-wee, they are doing well. And I mentioned at the start of my core plays video for the week, the one thing I wanted to do more of, like tracking wise, is just use the 9 to 5 lineup optimizer to just spit out lineups based off of the data. Just don't tweak it at all. I would line up with Scott and Denny McCarthy going right now, looking like a top 30 plays finisher, so which is all right. Had Cantlay, had Putnam, Tom Kim was the crusher in that one. And typically speaking, it will kind of favor the players that had the PM wave in round one, so the AM wave in round two, simply because they typically don't play as well, so they are expected to play a little bit better. But looking at it, like, we got a lot of interesting names here. Do you think that there's a hangover effect from the US Open? That's my question, because if you do, then it's really no shock that Wyndham Clark, Ricky, and Rory are all struggling. Heck, even Tommy Fleetwood as well. Someone that was in contention-ish. Xander shooting 44. Tom Kim. What is the common theme here? Those were all players that played well at the US Open. Little bit of a hangover effect going on right now for those players. So you do expect them to play better. Let's look at price point wise. You might be ending up on Tom Kim a little bit more. Let's see here, mate. Denny McCarthy, not a bad play. So for those that like to just kind of roll with the hot hand, Denny McCarthy could be one of those players. Okay, not a terrible play. Shane Lowry, not terrible as well, 21st. Are we getting any good values here at all? Not really. No big values popping up too much there. So what I want to do real quick is I want to go ahead and run the 9 to 5 lineup optimizer just to see what the optimal build would be. And I'll show you the secret to winning a Showdown GPP. This is what I did last week for the round 3 Showdown. Type in 3 unique players, type in max exposure, 35%. Then you have to input 2 data points. Maybe you don't like Byung Hung An as much, so let's just do 10. And maybe we think Thomas Dietrich's just having an off week. 10% max exposure. That's about it. Don't want to change too much. We click generate, and we might have a good lineup. So let's go ahead and take a peek. Tony Finau, okay, is popping up in there. Tony Finau was the second best showdown play. Then we got Ricky, one of the top plays. Clark, Kim. So we got a bunch of the top plays going in here. And it's kind of favoring Benny Ann simply because he's cheap is what we're seeing there. If we want to do it by tee time, let's just look at it. Late tee time, doing late because, well, this will update as the rounds are done, okay? So you could just do it like that if you want to. Rory, Tommy, Ricky, Tom Kim's popping up in there, Hovland, Fitzpatrick. So interesting stuff there. And then lastly, let's just take a peek at the betting page. Who are currently the favorites to win? Let's just go by outright. So Vegas is currently, this is something that I'll update as well at the end of the round. Okay, so we'll check back in here at the end of the round. And once again, this is something that, we'll update more once the rounds are all complete, but this is kind of what it's looking like for the top 3 ball bets. If you guys are someone that likes to do those for round 2, so something you can take a peek at as well. But that's gonna be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like and subscribe. That does help the channel. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cashing.